Awesome. We have a bunch of people here now. We're live streaming on Facebook. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Ethan. I work at Naropa University. And I'm sorry my video is not working. But this is also kind of my first time facilitating a Zoom meeting, so I'm trying to figure out the technology as we go. But I think we're doing well. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. So here at Naropa, we are a contemplative university, and you may be familiar that we like to begin our meetings with a bow. So whether you're sitting or standing, or I would invite you to just sit up straight, take a deep breath in, and lean forward and bow. And that's just a simple practice that we do at Naropa to honor the divinity in ourselves and in each other. And I'm going to lead us in a short contemplative practice. It's a Tonglen meditation where we'll be bringing forward compassion for ourselves and for all our relations. And so take a deep breath in and feel yourself connected to the earth. And breathe out. And take another deep breath in and feel yourself connected to the heavens, to the sky. And feel your core essence. You may feel like you're rooted to the earth like a tree, and with your arms branching out like the crown of a tree. Or you may feel the light of the sun or the light of yourselves radiating out. And take another deep breath in and out. And feel compassion permeating your body, relaxing your body from your toes and feet, up your legs, to your root chakra, your stomach and chest and spine, and your arms, and from your heart up through your throat, and emanating from your eyes and ears and out through your crown chakra. And relax deeply into that feeling of compassion for all you've been through today and all your days to be where you are today. Feel compassion for all the pain, the struggle, the heartache. And now you're here. Congratulations. And say with me, may I be happy. May I be peaceful. May I be free from suffering. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be safe from inner and outer dangers. May I be well in body and mind. May I be at ease and happy. May I walk in peace. Now take another deep breath in and out, and breathe in and out deeply as I'm speaking, and extend this compassion you feel for yourself. Extend it out to your immediate family and to your close friends and colleagues and comrades who you live and work and play with in your everyday life, and to those who you miss seeing and socializing with in these times of social distancing. And feel that compassion for all of your close friends and your family and your loved ones. And say, may we be happy. May we be peaceful. May we be free from suffering. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be safe from inner and outer dangers. May we be well in body and mind. May we be at ease and happy. May we walk in peace. And take another deep breath in and breathe out. And breathe in and out deeply as I'm speaking, and extend your compassion out to all the homes in your neighborhood, to all the neighborhoods in your city, to everyone across the state and across America, from the East Coast to the West Coast and the Midwest and the South. Extend that compassion to all the people in the country, including the most vulnerable folks, people experiencing homelessness, undocumented immigrants, the unemployed, and our elders, and those who are healing from illness. And extend that compassion even further to those with whom you disagree, who maybe have different politics or belief systems that clash with your own. And even further out to extend that compassion out to those who have directly harmed you or your loved ones. And say, may they be happy. May they be peaceful. May they be free from suffering. May they be filled with loving kindness. May they be safe from inner and outer dangers. May they be well in body and mind. May they be at ease and happy. May they walk in peace. Now the last part of our practice, take another deep breath in and out. And extend your compassion out to the whole world, to all corners of the earth, to all the continents and all those societies who are dealing with COVID-19, to all the frontline doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers who have a common mission but many different languages. And say, may all be happy, may all be peaceful, may all be free from suffering, may all be filled with loving kindness, may all be safe from inner and outer dangers, may all be well in body and mind, may all be at ease and happy, may all walk in peace. Just logistics, I need to admit a few more people, and then we will get started with our webinar. So Jolynn, I'm gonna, I think you're already unmuted. So I'm gonna invite you to give an introductory talk about the connections between physical, emotional, and mental health and resources that are available to students in these times.
Sure. Hi, my name's Jolynn Park. I run the Student Counseling Center at Naropa University. I see some familiar faces and some new ones, and I'm glad to be here with you guys. I was thinking about, just this format and the reality that we don't have a way to like project slides or images or that sort of thing. And I was trying to think about what would be most helpful to share in the few minutes I have with y'all. And I feel like one thing I want to just begin with is just gratitude. And then I'll offer some other offerings. But first, just grateful for the people who've shown up today. I'm grateful for Ethan and coordinating us, Brigitte, and Joel and Marco for showing up, and all the other faces and people who are here. I guess I'm just personally connecting to, amidst all of the unknown and all of the really unprecedented time of uncertainty, the good fortune that we have that we can show up on this call, the fact that we have a home to sit in, the fact that there's a computer, there's snow outside my windows, and I got to go for a walk earlier with my dog who's sitting over here, and just enjoy the snow. I have good food to eat. Just beginning with that sense of gratitude, even as we collect here to get together. And I think for me personally, as I navigate, at the center, at the Student Counseling Center, we have hundreds of students who have all kinds of situations this week, people who have lost loved ones and people who are now homeless or have lost jobs, or my best friend who is a doctor who's working, and putting herself in danger on a regular basis. We all have these stories and maybe personally have been significantly impacted by COVID-19. And I think that's important to recognize and honor. And I also think it's really important to just begin with a sense of gratitude for whatever wholeness or wholesomeness or goodness is here for us in this moment, knowing that it might change, but knowing that in this moment, we have a wonderful opportunity and the fortune to be here. So for me personally, when I think about what helps me through hard times or the clients that we work with, the work that we do, gratitude is huge. It gets me out of my small self and helps me kind of sink into a larger sense of what's happening in the world and really the inner resources that I have as a person. I think that's an important one to go to. I think a few other things I'd like to share. I had the good fortune many years ago to work with, I've been in a lot of strange situations. I got to work with female vets of Iraq and Afghanistan for several years in the wilderness. And I also was in Haiti when the earthquake occurred there and in Nepal when the earthquake occurred there. And I've been thinking very much in this time about personal trauma, of course, that we sometimes endure as human beings and somehow make it through. But in this particular pandemic kind of time, I think a lot about the collective trauma and the collective field that's created. And there's certainly, it's very easy for any of us to experience a lot of fear in this time. And sometimes there's wisdom in fear. But there's also some danger in it. It can be pretty contagious. And it's important to not just go into that fear, but to zoom out a little bit and remind ourselves what helps us get through hard times, personally or collectively. In my line of work, we say there's 4 friends of trauma. And these are tools that I bring from an organization I used to work at, Centerpoint Retreats, where we'd work with Afghani and Iraqi vets. And the 4 friends are really simple. They're things that you already have and already know. So I invite you to do them with me if you're nerdy enough to go for it. The first one is movement. So I just invite you to, if you have not already, I'll try to let this follow me, but move just for a minute, just stretch and move and get a little aliveness in your body when we're afraid or when we're, just going through a hard time. It's easy to get stuck and kind of freeze. And so movement, whether it's the ski that I did this morning or earlier this week, or just simply moving while you're sitting to take care of yourself, it's really big. It can help us get out of that nervous system response of frozen. A second one I'll offer to you is social connection. So we're all here. We all invested in ourselves and each other for these minutes, this hour and a half, to be connected. Our natural state is, the biggest part of our brain is mammalian. It's about social connection. It's about relationship. And we can't hug each other right now. We can't if we live alone. I'm single, so I don't have anyone to hug except for my dog. But it's a strange time socially with social distancing. But a friend of mine texted me earlier today, and I did it right before this gathering. She was like, hugging a tree feels a lot like hugging each other. Go do it, see what you think. And I gave that tree a hug for one of my best friends, and then the other best friend, and then another. And so social connection, whether it's through Zoom or whether it's with our animals or on the phone, or maybe we're lucky enough to live with others, it's really important for our sense of well-being and wholesomeness. And it certainly is easy to forget that, given that we can't meet in person as much as we're used to doing. So I thank you, Ethan, for coordinating this social connection. So the third friend is mindfulness. So mindfulness is a friend of trauma and helps us really combat the impact of personal or collective trauma, because it brings us back to the moment. What we do when we, myself included, I get caught like everybody else, what we do when we look at the internet for hours to try to understand what the hell is going on in our country, or what laws are changing, or what orders have been impacted, or what's happening with coronavirus. We get out of the moment, out of the here and now, and our embodied sense of being alive. And we get into our forward thinking mind, or we get into the past. And mindfulness brings us just here, right now. In this moment right now, things are pretty good, actually. I'm actually okay. We're all, there's some level of okayness here. And so mindfulness reminds us to be here right now, not too far ahead or behind. And the fourth friend I want to share with you is our breath. So Ethan invited us early to take some deep breaths with him. But when we slow down, breathe into our bellies, our breath is our connection between our mind and body, the sort of autonomic and conscious choices that we make with our bodies and movements. Our breath can be a tool that helps regulate us and helps us come back. So these four things, they're always here for you. They're here for all of us. And I hope that you lean into them in this time, in this strange time that we're in. A few other things specific to students who are on the call. Hopefully you got an email that was about a new program that we purchased. It's called Tao Connect, T-A-O Connect. And it's a self-help service that you can go through a number of modules. Many of them are very much about mindfulness or maybe emotional regulation or distress tolerance, a lot of different topics. But if that appeals to you, you're more than welcome to do that. It's a free thing that you can access. Anyone actually can access it if they have a naropa.edu address. And if you forget the name of that and want to email me, my name's Jolyn Park, jpark@naropa.edu. A few other things just to remind you that are there for you. On the naropa.edu website, there's a tab at the bottom called Coronavirus Resources. There's a whole segment around mental health and well-being that you can check out the resources there. And there's another tab that's about community offerings, and all kinds of beautiful things are being offered, whether it's compassion practices or just group get-togethers. Many, many different things. I've listened to a ton of recordings from Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach in this time, resources like that. But I welcome, especially our presenters, Marco Lamb, Brigitte Mars, Joel, just welcome y'all and welcome all the students. And I hope that what I've offered is helpful to you. And I hope that, the next hour we have together is beneficial. Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you so much, Dylan. We're going to move on now to our panelists. And the first segment is an introduction. We'll ask each panelist to tell us about who they are and about their connection to natural medicine. And you're unmuted, Brigitte. We'll start with you.
Hello, I'm Brigitte Mars. I've taught herbal medicine at Naropa for probably 30 years. I've been working with plant medicine for about 50 years. Lovely to see so many of you that I recognize. I've written 14 books on natural medicine. I have a radio show on KGNU called Naturally. I have a private practice. And so ever since I was a little girl, my grandmother was a practitioner of folk medicine, and I saw some of the things she did and I just said, boy, I want to be able to do that. So I work with food, herbs, supplements, homeopathy, essential oils, acupressure, anything natural that I think it's a great joy because you get to help people and you get to help the planet at the same time. And, I really appreciate what Jolyn said. And, I'm during this time of being quarantined, it's also a time for reflection. And I really am hoping that many of us are using this time so that we go out into the world and what we can do to make it a better place. Because even though there's a lot of disasters right now, there's also a lot of blessings. And how can we carry some of that into the future? Because it wasn't going so great before. And hopefully we're all using this time as an opportunity to learn, grow, evolve, and help evolution in a positive way. So thank you. Thanks, Ethan, for bringing this all together.
Thank you, Brigitte. Next, we have Marco Lamb.
Right.
And
good evening, everybody. I've been a practitioner of Chinese medicine for I'm losing count, but I think 21 years in Boulder and 3 years in the Hawaiian Islands before that, and in Asia in the years before that. I've run the Mandala Integrative Medicine Clinic. We're an interdisciplinary medical clinic in Boulder, and we're going on our 20 years in Boulder. We have 28 practitioners spanning a pretty wide range of modalities. And I was a professor Naropa many years ago. I'm on my 10th year of being on sabbatical from teaching at Naropa, but I was a permaculture professor there and started the permaculture program there, and built the greenhouse there with my students, and have a profound and deep love for students seeking a contemplative education in their lives early on. And just grateful to be here and happy to answer questions around Chinese medicine and Chinese medicinals, and share some of the research of coming back from some of my mentors in China as well.
Thank you for joining us, Marco. I had no idea you had this connection to Naropa. That's really great to hear. Next, we have Joel Roth Davis, and you're
Thank
unmuted,
you,
Joel.
Ethan. I'm Joel. I am a wilderness EMT. I am the founder of Festival Medical, which is a 501c3 nonprofit based here in Boulder that's designed to bridge the gap between emergency response and all of the alternative, holistic, intuitive healers we have in our community, to bring healing modalities under the same tent. Over the past decade, I've worked as a festival medic, mostly at concerts, at shows, at community events. And we're in this really amazing transition period right now where we're not having those, where we're having to create something new. And it's always kind of been my vision to build brick and mortar healing clinics in communities like Boulder that are very open and rich in alternative healing modalities. So that's the next step in the evolution of Festival Medical, is these brick and mortar clinics in our local communities. And I'm incredibly excited about the progress that we're making on that, and the capacity to receive funding, not only from the community, but from government institutions, to build out these clinics and create more alternative, holistic healing modalities, make them available to broader swath of our communities.
Thank you, Joel. It's great to have you here.
Yeah.
If anyone has questions for our panelists, you're welcome to use the chat box. But I'm going to ask our first question, and we will have the same order that we just had for intros. And the question is, what specific or general natural healing ideas and practices do you recommend to help our immune and respiratory systems stay strong at all times, but especially in these times of the coronavirus pandemic? Please emphasize any ideas or practices that are simple, affordable, accessible, and can be done while practicing appropriate social distancing at home or close to home. These can include specific herbal remedies or formulations from a branch of natural healing. So we'll start with Brigitte.
So, it's great to see everyone paying attention to their health, and I think it's a good thing to do all the time. So, but I did make a little YouTube called What to Do for Super Viruses. So I want to give you a few ideas that are on that. And of course, our lungs, which can be particularly vulnerable during this time, things like exercise and fresh air are really good for us. So I hope people are taking advantage of that. And, you can still keep social distancing, but to breathe the air that's so much cleaner right now is really great. And of course, getting adequate rest. But I also think of what are some of the foods that can help our lungs, and anything that is high in beta carotene, all those great dark orange vegetables, winter squashes and pumpkins and carrots and sweet potatoes. So all those colorful vegetables. And, it's also good not only to pay attention to our lungs, but, think about strengthening our kidneys with green leafy vegetables. I like black colored foods like black quinoa, black rice, black beans. And this is a great opportunity to really lay on more culinary spices. Almost all of the culinary herbs are pungent and increase circulation and break up phlegmy congestion. So things like raw garlic and onions and ginger and cayenne and cinnamon and oregano, spice it up. And then, you know, another great thing about garlic is my grandmother had 11 children, and at one time they all had whooping cough, which was, you know, could be a very serious illness. And a folk remedy that she did was she put oil on the soles of their feet and put chopped garlic on the soles of their feet. And the oil was designed to prevent the garlic from burning your skin. And then she'd pull a pair of socks over their little feet, and within a few minutes, they would have garlic breath. And garlic is a great bronchodilator. And we want to remember that that was used during, you know, many other plagues in history. Another simple thing we might do is include more essential oils. You can diffuse them, you can smell them, you could add them to the bath. But, you know, when we're thinking about preventing contagion, if we do need to be in a room with other people, you might want to think about getting an inexpensive aromatherapy diffuser and diffusing essential oils like eucalyptus or oregano or pine or spruce or fir, lavender, melaleuca or tea tree. So those are a few other things. And, you know, I'm not as into supplements as I am herbs, but I think of things like, you know, vitamin A or beta carotene, which is in those dark orange vegetables, and zinc, which is plentiful in pumpkin and sunflower seeds, and vitamin D, which we do get from sunlight. And there's so many wonderful antimicrobials, and I'm sure Marco will, you know, touch on some. I don't want to, you know, give the whole spiel thing away, but, you know, nature is resplendent with antimicrobial herbs. And, you know, in the West, we have things like, you know, there's so many I could say, but, you know, elderberry and isatis, which is more of an Asian herb, but garlic, oregano is one of my favorites. And it's really concentrated when you buy it in capsules. A couple other herbs, marshmallow root or slippery elm can bind with phlegm and help carry it out of our bodies. It's said that the viruses don't like heat. And so a practice that I sometimes do is go out in the sun when we have a sunny day and open my mouth and direct sun rays right into my throat and up into my nostrils. That's such an easy thing, and it doesn't cost anything. They're not charging for sunlight yet. So hopefully those are a few ideas that are easy to incorporate. And thank you so much for sharing, and I'll listen. Thank you.
Thanks, Brigitte.
I just love hearing Brigitte speak. It just having such a wonderful herbalist in our community who spent so many of her years educating and teaching the community on natural medicine. It's just an honor to be here with you, Brigitte.
Thank you. Blessings.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marco.
You know, the benefit of the Chinese medicine tradition is the ability to see really complex patterns in complex ecologies and to treat them with fairly complex plant-based medicine that accounts for the patient's microbiome, the environmental factors, and the pathogen's virulence. And, you know, the virulence of COVID-19 is quite virulent. And so one of the beauties of this, because it hit Asia first, and Taiwan and China and South Korea and Japan, where you have a lot of Chinese medicine being used, where Chinese medicine has been, and herbology has been the primary treatment modality for treating it. But one of the things we don't hear a lot, we hear a lot about social isolating. And I think Brigitte touched on it with elderberries and antivirals and taking herbs and taking good care of your health. A lot of times when people are fearful, they're worried about the virus. But in sort of natural herbalism, we talk about both the strength of the pathogen, but we also talk about the health of the terrain. So like when you have a sick fish in your fish tank, a lot of times you say you want to basically change the water and get healthy water back in your fish tank to sort of change the microbiome as opposed to treat the sick fish. And it's very much the same here. And all the Chinese doctors say there's one common pattern at the heart of this illness. And there's not a really great Western analog for it, but it translates as dampness. And COVID-19 is looked at as a damp plague. From the doctors in China, a useful early diagnosis is by looking at the microbiome on the coating of the tongue. And if you look at the coating of a tongue of someone with a lot of dampness in their system, and the coronavirus basically latches on that dampness and accelerates the amount of dampness in the system by damaging the organs. But if you look at your tongue and you see a thick, white, sticky coating, you know you have a lot of dampness. A lot of times, people with that thick, white, sticky coating will already have some sort of digestive microbiome dysbiosis going on, or have some diabetic issues. For most young, healthy college students, the only time you'll get that thick white coating is after binge drinking. If you remember your mouth after you've been a night out drinking too much, sometimes you get that hairy carpet on your tongue. And so obviously this is not a good time to binge drink, just because it lowers your immune system. And even though you're at home with your roommates or at home with your family and maybe driven to change your state with substances, there are better substances to do than alcohol and cannabis at this time, which is sometimes a hard communication to Naropa students in the past. And the concept of this damp biome is really worth exploring from a Chinese medicine perspective, because I think it will give us both preventative steps to take individually and to understand where the illness will hit the most and which populations will be most impacted. And so looking for the populations that are eating lots of simple carbohydrates, lots of sugars, smoking, drinking, you're going to be hit a lot more harder by this illness, because this illness latches on to that dampness. And what I've been explaining to my patients is that damp in the human biome translates to a collection of mucus, bacteria, yeast, and viral factors that are imbalancing our healthy microbial balance. And, a good Chinese doctor will always look at your tongue for dampness and feel your pulses and just sort of look at it. And while a thick coating doesn't predispose that you have COVID-19, it says you're more susceptible to illness. And one of the beautiful things that this dampness is that it can be treated, and there'll be a lot of ancillary benefits. So if you already have some dampness in your system, this is a good time to take care of it. And the first, Brigitte and I are very much in alignment, is exercise is essential. There's a Chinese saying that a damp cloth doesn't mold if it's hung out in the sun to dry. And basically, appropriate exercise moves more oxygen in the body. Avoid alcohol and tobacco. These are both things that create heat and dampness in the system. And this one may be a little one that Brigitte and I might differ on, but they're saying that you want to avoid eating too much raw, cold, sweet, or mucus-forming foods. They say do eat lots of fresh vegetables, but things like bananas and lots of tropical fruit create a fair amount of dampness. And sometimes when people start every day with a smoothie, if they don't have a strong, robust digestion to begin with, it can create a lot of dampness in their system. And places where Brigitte and I would be on the same page is avoid soda, sugar, packaged foods, industrial farm meats and eggs. These are all things that we know create dampness in the system. And medicinally, we can talk about adding bitter herbs and vegetables that dry dampness. And these are like pumpkin, amaranth, aduki beans, celery, scallions, turnips, lettuce. In Chinese medicine, they talk about slow cooked stews and soups are very easy for the spleen to digest, and so support your spleen in creating less dampness, because sometimes we take the dampness from outside into our systems, and sometimes we create the dampness from within our system when our own microbiome and digestion is weak. So I think I can put those things in the chat box too if it's helpful. The herbs that I'm recommending to my patients preventatively are elderberry. The evidence, particularly on viral illnesses, is really strong on elderberry. The classic formula used in Chinese medicine is called Yuping Fengsan, or the jade windscreen. most acupuncturists will carry it. I formulated a product with that jade windscreen and elderberry in it, and it's combined with vitamin C. And if people want to get it, they can get it at performancetea.com. And yeah, I hope this is helpful for you guys in this challenging time. I imagine it's a weird and strange time to be a student away from all your schoolmates and isolated. And I resonate with Jo Lynn's advice that some of the biggest challenges of these are going to be the challenging internal states that it brings up. And I have more, but I also want to share the time, so I'll pass it on from there.
Wow, what a privilege to be here with Brigitte, with Marco. Such a wealth of wisdom between the two of them. I can speak from my own personal experience. I graduated from the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. It's very moldy up there. But as far as the education, it's very similar to Naropa. It's contemplative, it's wide-ranging. And so I was able to study a tremendous array of different things. But as I said, this is very personal to me. My lungs just completely shut down living in the Pacific Northwest, living in that damp environment. And so I've spent close to 15 years now specifically studying the type of medicinals that help with the lungs, that help with dilation, that help with strength, that help with cleansing. And I'm so excited to be able to share that with you. I'm going to start though at the very beginning with basic practices we can start our days with. I think that the first hour of our day, especially in quarantine here, is the most important, the most crucial. So first thing in the morning, the most important thing, go to the bathroom and cleanse your mouth. We detox through our breath throughout the night. We're spending 6 to 8 hours exhaling, detoxing the stuff onto our tongues, onto our mouths. So first thing in the morning, mouthwash, get a rinse, get that cleansed, and then immediately start drinking water. We dehydrate overnight, and hydration, drinking clean water, especially spring water, is the best benefit that we can give our bodies first thing in the morning before any food, before anything else. So during that time that I'm drinking my liter of spring water first thing in the morning, I'm starting to move. Personally, I like to start slow. I start with some simple stretching, some meditation. I know one of my lovers just gets out of bed and she's just off the hook. She's ready to dance. So she gets right out of bed and starts spinning around in the room. Whatever your particular proclivity is, jump on that. Really embody that. First thing in the morning, get going with the speed that you need to start out with. A really important thing for me is no technology for at least an hour after getting up. There's so many things that we can do to get prepared for our day, to really drop in and embody. And having those screens in front of us just completely takes us out of our bodies. So to mirror what Jo Lynn said, it's so crucial to be able to give yourself that time to be in your body, to exist presently in your presence, and welcome yourself into the day. It starts to move the lymph, which is incredibly crucial for detoxification. And it starts you off, I think, in the right way. And when we're quarantined at home, when we're stuck in these same surroundings all day long without variety, I think it's so important to get those routines down pat. And that morning routine, however it works for you, is just crucial. Second thing I'll talk about is cleansing. So first and foremost, air. We're breathing all day, every day. So the air that we breathe in our homes is crucial. A lot of people don't bother to change out the air filters on their heaters in their house. That's something to definitely check in on and clean out on a regular basis, generally once a month, but even more so can be good. I have extra air filters around my house to always make sure that it's purifying and cleaning. As Brigitte said, there's amazing essential oils. I have Thieves Blend running in my diffuser basically 24 hours a day. Sage is incredible for clearing space energetically. I don't have any specific studies that show that saging destroys viral activity, but I feel fairly confident based upon my experience of it that it can absolutely clear out viruses and bacteria. Yeah, so that's air. Again, getting outside, just mirroring what Brigitte said, fresh air is so important. Sunlight, grounding into the earth, being on the earth, being in connection with soil, with the microbiome of the soil, makes such a huge difference on the soles of our feet, on our hands. I know a lot of people have been getting into their gardens now with this free time, and I can't think of anything that's more holistically healing than spending time in your garden. So we're first talking about air. Water is the next. We can go maybe 3 days without water before we die. The water that you ingest is so crucial to your ultimate health and vitality. We're lucky to have El Dorado Spring here in Boulder, but any spring water you can get is going to be really, really wonderful, perfectly balanced and mineralized, alive and ready to feed your body. If you can't get spring water, if you don't have access, I recommend reverse osmosis filtration. Those are actually really easy to install under most sinks, and I found them for $150 to $200. You definitely have to remineralize the water after stripping all the minerals out during RO. But if you're going to be using a city system, going to be drinking city water, then reverse osmosis is the most cost-effective way to filter it really well. Berkeys are great systems too. Definitely want to get that fluoride out. But clean water is crucial. It's immensely important for all of the cleansing activity that our body goes through. And then number 3 is our food. And Brigitte spoke to this as well. There's so many amazing root vegetables that are incredibly potent at mineralizing us, at healing us. Definitely prioritizing those organics. The Environmental Working Group has a list of the Clean 15 and Dirty Dozen foods based upon USDA pesticide residue testing. So when you're on a budget, as we all pretty much are now, it's a great way to prioritize which foods you want to buy organic versus which ones you can buy conventional and save some money on them. Eliminating processed foods from your diet. Oh my gosh, makes such a huge difference to exclude those heavily processed foods, to drop back into basic core ingredients, the kind of stuff that our grandparents ate and recognized. Yeah, that's gonna be the basis for the foods we wanna eat. And then finally, fasting. The absence of food is such an important tool for detoxification. Every time I get sick, I'll immediately stop eating. And a lot of times when people get sick, they notice they're either nauseous or they don't have an appetite. Listen to your body. Your body knows what's up. And if you don't have an appetite, don't try and force anything down. Chicken noodle soup isn't going to make you feel, I mean, maybe mentally it'll make you feel better, but physically it's not going to do that. So fasting is so crucially important to allowing our body to take those resources away from digesting and move them towards cleansing and healing. And then the last thing I want to talk about is immunity enhancement. Number 1, as I said before, hydrate. You want to be drinking 3 liters of preferably spring water every single day. Really focus in on making sure that you're hydrating yourself. The majority of us are chronically dehydrated, and it just creates an environment in your body that's much more likely to foster disease and discomfort. As far as supplementation goes, I think that at our latitude, it's really hard for our bodies to get vitamin D from the sun, or at least enough of it. So especially in the wintertime, I recommend everyone to supplement extra vitamin D, and a quality supplement. Anytime you're working on supplements, price is going to be a good indicator of whether this is going to work or not, whether it's valuable and worth your money or not. The more expensive supplements generally are significantly better. So vitamin D, vitamin C is fantastic. Magnesium, all of our topsoils in this country, unless you're coming directly from your garden, from a permaculture garden, our topsoils are deficient in magnesium. They're deficient in selenium. They're deficient in zinc. So I've found that adding those in as supplements can be very helpful. Everyone's results may vary, but these are some generalities that really do make a profound difference. Paul Stamets has amazing mushroom blends, specifically for immunity, that I can't recommend enough. They come in tinctures, they come in pills, capsules. Any of those, getting the mycelial network involved in your healing is a very good idea. Probiotics, our immune system, over half of it works in the gut. And so making sure that you have good solid probiotic sources, whether that's kraut, whether that's beet juice shots, whether those are capsules, a variety of sources of probiotics that can culture in your gut and really give you that first layer of defense from illness, from attack, are crucial. And then green superfoods, whatever superfood powder. I know Ethan really likes Purium. I really like Health Force. There's so many different amazing green superfood supplements that we can use to alkalize our bodies, that we can use to get that chlorophyll in on a deep level. I don't know if you've ever looked at the map of the cell structure of chlorophyll versus human blood hemoglobin, and they're almost identical. It's amazing. So chlorophyll is like plant blood, and the more that we can get into our bodies, the better off we'll be. The last thing that I'll say on supplementation, I found colloidal silver to be incredibly beneficial. Generally, they don't recommend taking it internally for an extensive time, but I like the topical one at very low dose. So I have a nasal spray and a throat spray of colloidal silver solution. It's about 10 parts per million, so it's very small, but topically it works incredibly. I was feeling, I think this was 4 weeks ago, I was feeling the back of my throat, the start of something, whatever it was, trying to take hold, and colloidal silver spray in there, breathing in the colloidal silver spray. It feels like a coat of armor in my lungs and in my throat and in my sinuses. And I can't recommend that enough. It's not all that expensive. And I found it to work so well. So that's what I'll say as far as supplementation. Another great way to enhance your immunity, no cost whatsoever, is cold immersion. So a lot of people maybe don't have a bathtub they want to fill up all the way cold, but I found a really easy way to do it is you take your shower like normal, nice and hot, you get yourself warm, and then at the very end of your shower, switch it to cold. And you can even put it halfway so it's not too rough. And stand there and breathe. Feel the cold water on you and breathe. That's the most important thing. You can do it for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. Just see how many breaths, how many full open breaths you can take standing there in cold water. And that boosts your immunity. It kickstarts your entire system process to really to get the lymph flowing and to just take out any invaders that are trying to jump in your system. Wim Hof method is a fantastic resource. You can check him out. He has a lot of resources online for breathwork modalities specific to cold therapy. Yeah, and then grounding. really getting outside barefoot and allowing the earth to enter you, taking those breaths, inhale through the soles of your feet, all the way up to the top of your lungs, exhale back down into the earth, your feet and your hands, just being one with that microbiome, with the earth. It really changes things. It really impacts things a lot. So I think I'll leave it there and I'll kick it back to Ethan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joel, and such a wealth of knowledge and ideas. We can go back to Brigitte and to Marco for a few more minutes for each of you if you have any more that you'd like to share.
Sure, I'd like to share a few things. When I first started hearing about this virus, I work also part-time at Pharmaca, and everyone was coming in for aspirin. And I just, want to remind people that fever is the body's way of heating up to destroy infection. And so the herbal way of dealing with fever is to help your body to sweat, to eliminate toxin through your skin. And Marco, I actually do agree with you about the dampness and the phlegm. And you mentioned some of the animal products that would be very phlegm producing. And I just want to say that in the time of Corona, lots of dairy products, milk and cheese and ice cream are just going to create a lot of phlegm, and that's what you don't want. And Joel, thank you for mentioning Paul Stamets mushrooms. I have been finding cordyceps to be particularly strengthening to the lungs, and his company Host Defense has a formula called Breathe. And I just saw that wonderful movie, Fantastic Fungi. If you haven't seen that, oh, it's so awesome. And that really inspired me to just see how important, because in nature, mushrooms help to decompose things that don't need to be there anymore, like, rotting logs and rotting leaves. And in our body, they can help with, just stagnation and clearing that. Also, I've been hearing a lot about that the coronavirus has a lipid surrounding, like a fat coating. And, again, this hasn't been scientifically proven because natural remedies haven't really been investigated for this. It's such a new thing and everyone's looking for drugs and vaccines. But, throughout history, people have dealt with all kinds of plagues and viruses. And when I think of like a lipid coating, I think of, something that is good for coughs and does help to break through fatty deposits. And I think of the old standby apple cider vinegar, apple cider vinegar and a little bit of honey, if you want to use that, it really can help reduce coughing. It's high in vitamin C. If you use unpasteurized apple cider vinegar, it has some probiotics in it, like Bragg's or Eden Foods or Sterling, or a few brands that are unpasteurized. And another thing, I'm seeing a lot of people, it seems like we have to avoid death at all costs. And I was on some kind of global prayer a few weeks ago, and the prayer was like, may all beings be healed. And I almost wanted to add, if they want to be. If they want to be, we need to realize that we're all going to leave this planet at some time. And for some people, this is an exit. This is an escape route. And I know that might sound a little harsh because I think we get so attached that we've got to be in our bodies as long as possible. But, how amazing we all need to realize, because we never know how long we have on this planet, that we want to be able to surrender into the universe and to lead gracefully when it's our time. And not everyone lives to be, 106, although I did have a mother-in-law who lived to be 106, but it really wasn't a whole lot of fun for her and all the caregivers that she needed. So I just, I'm also an end of life doula. So one of the things I like to do is help people to, think about, think about preparing to leave this planet while you are capable and clear thinking, and what are your intentions, and, do you have a will, and, does your partner know which bowl costs $500 and which one's from Target? Just things like that, and not leaving a mess. So I think it's really important to open up the dialogue of, would we be ready if we only had a few weeks or a few days or a few months to live? And that's think a lot of people, when they start to realize that, it's too late. And, you know, you're also hearing about people, one of the hard things that are, you know, that people who are dying of coronavirus, one of the hard things is, I didn't get to say goodbye. And so I see this as another opportunity to, you know, honor our loved ones all the time, rather than like, oh my God, they died, but yet I haven't called them in 5 years, or I haven't sent them a card. So what can we do to really honor the relationships that we feel are valuable, you know, while we still have them, before it's too late? Because, you know, once someone's in an induced coma or on a ventilator, you know, your goodbyes really might not be that heard anyways. So those are just a few things. Thank you so much. I'll pass it on.
You know, the context I've been looking at this whole thing as the great pause. You know, it's been a long time since we've had a great pause in the sort of industrial machine of commerce and capitalism and production. And so we're having a chance to take a big pause. And I think this sense of pause can both put a lot of strain on a lot of systems that are very fragile to begin with. And we see that with the Western healthcare system treating a lot of sick people, and hospitals getting filled. And we see it with the industrial food system, and we see it with the industrial healthcare system, and we see it with big banks and the sort of strands of capitalism. And so I think for me, the orientation is more, if we pause and say, rather, what is essential to life? We have an opportunity here to really build better systems. And I firmly believe that permaculture is a practice that designs for these challenging times. And this is one of the best things I think we can do, is harvest our own medicine, take back the reins of our own healthcare, and grow some of our own food. And this is a perfect time of year to do it. And just, you know, in a way, I have a prayer for all of you as students at Naropa, that this becomes like a really rich part of your education. One of the beauties of this time is people are more accessible than ever via electronic format. You can talk to just about anybody. You can talk to mentors. You can talk to experts in the field and say, hey, I'm writing a paper. I want to have 20 minutes of your time. Would you be willing to have a Skype chat with me? And I found people to be really generous and giving and open to teaching over Zoom and over Skype at professors who in times in my past would have been very inaccessible because they would just been too busy. So this great pause is a great time to gather information and knowledge to move your lives in the directions that are really meaningful to you, that are meaningful to your hearts. And just want to applaud you for taking a contemplative education, and really hope you are both able to feel what you're feeling in terms of sort of Jolene's work, and ask for support when you need it, but also take advantage of this time should you be resourced to really learn what's important to you. And I think Naropa is a great place for that. I'll pass it on to Joel.
Yeah, to piggyback on Marco, again, this pause is another opportunity externally to create new things, to figure out what your drive and purpose is in this new world we're going to be creating, but also to look internally and to really ground into place your routines of how you live your life and how you supplement, how you support your own physical body. Moving forward, this is the first. There's going to be more pandemics. There's going to be more viral activity that we're going to have to relate with, and that we're going to have to figure out what the right relationship is with. And so the more that you can clean up your diet, the more that you can enhance your water intake, the more that your practices are on point, finding out the right ones for you and really, really grinding them into your soul, into your being, the better off we're all going to be coming out of this as stronger, more whole, more full, more embodied, more enlightened human beings. And that's my vision and my hope for all of us.
Thank you all. We have some time now for panelists to ask each other questions, to have some dialogue. Or if any participants have a question, you could type that into the chat box. We have a few more minutes before I'll get to the next question on my agenda. So, Joel, Brigitte, Marco, do you have anything you want to ask from another panelist, or?
I just want to discuss one of my favorite herbs that I know is also one of Brigitte's favorite herbs from the Chinese medicine perspective is dandelions. Dandelions will pop up as soon as the snow melts, and you can harvest maybe 4 or 5 roots about the size of your pinky finger and boil them for half an hour at a simmer, and then strain them and add a little fresh squeezed lemon and a little bit of honey, and then put it in your fridge and drink a cup of that every morning. And dandelion drains dampness and has some antiviral properties as well. And I would just love to hear, I know Brigitte is also a lover of dandelion, so I'd love to hear her take too.
Well, you both, Marco and Joel, bring up such a good point, because one of the things we know about viruses is they constantly mutate. And when we look at the power of wild foods, I mean, the dandelions are going to be fine when all the snow melts. But if you'd already planted zucchini or tomatoes, they would be over, because the wild plants constantly adapt and mutate. They are survivalists. Nobody planted them, nobody mulched them, watered them, weeded them, gave them fertilizer, and yet they persevere despite all kinds of humanity's efforts to eradicate them. And so, yes, the dandelion flowers are edible. They're high in lutein, which is good for our eyes, and the leaves are edible. And then the roots are edible. You can dig them up and scrub them. And I learned when I was teaching in Iceland last year, I'd never done this before. You can even boil the stems like noodles. Oh my goodness. And then make like a dandelion leaf pesto. So I feel like we are going to have to adapt to viruses, because this is probably not the last one. There's always going to be viruses. And so when we start taking on embracing the wildness, and I have to tell you, we need to get right with edible lawns. I walk around and I see people still growing grass and putting up those warning pesticides applied signs. And we need to, I really hope a huge cultural shift that comes from this is that we start, I wrote an article called "Get Off Your Grass and Create an Edible Lawn." We're wasting our nation's water to water grass and then using gasoline to mow it down. This is crazy. And I think a lot of people are thinking, what would I do? It seems so much more civilized. I'm going to get in my car, and I don't have one, by the way, get in my car and drive to the health food store to buy lettuce that's trucked in from California. Come on, that is old school. When you mow your lawn, providing that it's not just growing grass, it's malva and chickweed and violet and dandelion, like that's thousands of dollars worth of food, and you can pick it and it grows back. All right, so that's something I'm going to really dedicate the rest of my life to helping bring on that cultural shift. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about dandelions.
And I just want to say there's, someone asked the question on herbs and natural ways to support our emotions at this time. And I think one of the reasons why Brigitte and I love dandelions so much is because they grow everywhere. They're probably in your yard already. And there's a big difference when you walk out into your landscape and you're surrounded by medicine and you realize all these plants are here to help you. It does something to your nervous system. You start coming home. You're like, oh, this is my place. I know these medicines. And the dandelion is, everybody can identify one. Everyone knows where one is. So it's not like, it's very accessible. It's like, it's a guide to introducing people to plant medicine. And it's one thing to take, fancy plant medicines from South America or, you know, things that you buy from the store. But there's a difference when you harvest it right from your own doorstep, and then you suddenly feel like, oh wait, like the medicine is here for me. And for me, like once I go to a place and know the plants, I feel at home, and it changes my nervous system. I feel more relaxed. I feel more at ease because I know I can take care of myself with what is here. And when I go to new places, I inevitably find the plant people, the medicine doctors in that area, and learn the new plants. And then I can even feel at home when I'm in new ecosystems and new places. So I hope that there's a sense of coming home too during this time, both in yourselves and in your practices, but also in relating to the actual landscapes you live in.
I see a question here about ways to support our emotions during this time. And so, a really important thing is during this time, where are we putting our consciousness? Are we just watching, movies and, digging on literature that's full of violence and mysteries and mayhem? Like,
yeah,
this
don't watch the Tiger King. It's horrible.
What's that?
I said, don't watch the Tiger King.
Yeah, I'm not going to. No, but Outlander's pretty good. Outlander's about an herbalist that time travels. I love that. And maybe reading, things of quality. And, right now I'm growing sprouts. I'm making sauerkraut. We're growing kombucha in the closet. Like, this is a time to like doing all those like, back to the land crafts. And you can do it even in the city. And, there's something again about eating something so fresh that it was just growing 5 minutes ago when you make a salad of something in your yard or that you collected on a walk, rather than something that was in the ground maybe 6 weeks ago. You just don't get chi like that from, something that was grown so long ago and kept in one warehouse after another. So thank you so much for bringing up the wild things. It's so important. And I think that's one of the ways we've been bamboozled. One of the big cosmic lies, like, you're not a good citizen if you have dandelions in your yard. And I'm saying you're not a good citizen if you're spraying pesticides. And we all need to remember that dandelions are one of the first foods for the bees. So when we spray the dandelions, we're contributing to the demise of the bees, and the bees pollinate 3 out of every 4 bites of food we eat. So, wake up and smell the dandelions. And you know what? Lawnmowers, leaf blowers, and weed eaters, those things are noisy, nasty. I think that someone showed that an 80-year-old woman with a broom could clear as many leaves as one of those leaf blowers. So remember that.
Thank you. I agree that dandelions are incredible. I do want to add just a word of caution to be aware of where you're getting your dandelions. For example, if they're going in a sidewalk median next to a busy road, you may not want those dandelions that have been covered in exhaust fumes. You might want to find a backyard with some more fresh, natural dandelions. And in response to the question about herbs to support our emotions, dandelions are great, but there are so many other amazing flowers too. And soon we'll be in spring, and I think of chamomile and lavender and rose and all those great flowers. I need to plug in my computer, so I'm going to do that. And so, do you have anything else you want to add before I get to the next question?
I'll briefly say something about the emotional body. So our emotional body is not separate from our physical body. And I love the, Asian perspective that, depression and anger may have its roots in liver disharmonies. And being creative is a remedy for that. So this is a great time to bring out your art supplies or that guitar you used to play, or, write some poetry or sketch, because creativity helps to get rid of some of those emotions. And, fear and anxiety, we could help that by yoga, breathing, contemplation, clearing clutter. Clutter makes us feel overwhelmed. So, when you're cleaning your house, clean it with baking soda and vinegar and natural things so you're not polluting the air that you're breathing. Fear can be ameliorated by strengthening the kidneys and bladder and eating more black foods. One of my, favorite survival foods, and I've been telling people this for years, like every time you go to the health food store, buy a bag of chia seeds, because if the going gets tough, chia, you don't need to cook it. You just soak it in water. And you could cook it if you wanted to, but you could add tamari or maple syrup or almond butter or dandelion leaves or flowers. But it's really great to know, like, what could you eat? And the chia seeds expand and they absorb 7 times their weight in water. So, a pound of chia seeds is like a month's worth of breakfast. And so that's just a thing. It's good to be prepared. We remember that from, our childhood, hopefully.
I'm going to ask the next question, and that is, the coronavirus pandemic has quickly turned our world upside down. Suddenly, much of capitalism and our civil institutions and social life have come to a grinding halt, as we're being told by public health experts to basically transform into a society of introverts, focused exclusively on our personal health. This change has been very hard and shocking for many, including those whose lives have been immersed in and economically dependent upon the rat race. But it's also an opportunity to restore deeper balance, harmony, integrity, and sustainability to our often overwhelmed lives. Indeed, the mission of Naropa University is to prepare people with knowledge, wisdom, and skills so they can be the change in their workplaces and communities and live joyous, meaningful lives. We aim to foster a more just and equitable society and to engage courageously with a complex and challenging world to help transform our world through skill and compassion. So shifting now from individual natural healing practices to collective transformation, how do you envision we will emerge from this current pandemic crisis to evolve into greater balance and harmony with the natural world? What lessons or insights should we carry in our hearts and minds as we come together to build a new post-pandemic world where natural healing is available to all people and not just a privileged few? Who would like to start?
I'll jump in on that. I think that as a medic, as an EMT working on the front lines, working with hospitals, working with allopathic clinics, what we're seeing is that we are incredibly unprepared for something of this scope. And it's directly a result of our for-profit healthcare system. And it's directly a result of prioritizing treatment rather than prevention. So again, this is a wonderful time for us all to figure out what works for our own individual unique ecosystems, what supports our own bodies. And it's all trial and error. It's research, it's experimentation, and it's paying attention. It's being mindful to what the impacts of the things you're taking, the things that you're taking in both physically and mentally, they play a huge role. So moving forward, I think that this has made a better argument than Bernie Sanders ever did for universal health care, for Medicare for all. Like the fact that the Mexican farm worker who's picking all of these mass-produced crops in California, if they get sick, then the CEO can get sick too. There's no divide. People are starting to realize that everything's interconnected in our system, and our system's incredibly vulnerable. So the hope, my vision, is creating these holistic healing clinics that are free, that are accessible to all, that are financed completely by our tax dollars, and that allow all kinds of practitioners in our communities to come together and offer their services without feeling pinched, without feeling a need to to charge exorbitant amounts, to keep things really simple and straightforward so that it's accessible to everyone. We're going to need a much more flexible system moving forward, that we can respond to these outbreaks really quickly, that hospital capacity can expand tremendously in a short period of time, and then contract back down when it's not needed anymore. And I think it's so imperative that we get alternative modalities looked at in the same way that most people are looking at a traditional allopathic doctor. Unfortunately, most allopathic doctors these days are trained specifically to write prescriptions. Here's your pill, here's the solution for not necessarily your ailment, here's the solution for your symptoms. And of course, with natural medicine, we're looking far deeper. We're looking at the ecosystem of our bodies as a holistic unit, and we're seeing how we can supplement and how we can fulfill it, how we can give ourselves the building blocks that we need for individual sovereignty and individual health. And the hope is that people will start really taking control of that they'll realize that they know more about their health history than any doctor will, that they know more about what inputs work well for them than any doctor. So maybe bringing allopathic medicine down just a little bit, it definitely has its value and its worth, but not holding it up on this high pedestal the way that we do, looking at it as the end all be all, that we need a vaccine and then everything will be okay again. It's ludicrous. That's not how it works. Our own individual immunity is what's going to get us to the point of not needing vaccines, of not needing to rely on pharmaceutical cartels to tell us how to be well, and how to fix things that go wrong in our bodies. Yeah. So I'm really holding this vision for widespread healing clinics in all of our communities that are accessible to all and that have an incredibly wide array of offerings. It pains me so much that massage therapists and chiropractors are closed down during this time, because touch is so essential to our sense of well-being. And getting regular body work is so crucial to allowing our bodies to work well. So I think this is something really interesting that we're going to see moving forward in the next month, in the next 2 months, as we're looking to end lockdown, is which sort of services start becoming available and in what context. There's another piece too around mental health. Human touch is a huge component of positive mental health. Having community that you can rely on, being in relationship with other people, is necessary for our mental health. So right now we have opportunities to video chat. We have, hopefully people live in communities, have the opportunity to really dive in with the people that are physically there with them. But as we're coming out of this, we're going to have to figure out really effective and safe ways that we can come back together in community, in groups, because that is what humanity is based on. That is what creates our feelings of wellness. That's what creates our feelings of connection. Our feelings of worth, self-worth is in relationship with community. So I'm really intrigued at how these next few months are going to turn out, and I feel like we have the opportunity to start up again in new ways that prioritize these things that we know are essential for our health and well-being.
I'll share something. I put a little thought into this, having a discussion with a friend of mine on the porch a few weeks ago, and it was about how do we foresee a post-pandemic world and what might be some virtues that we can take from this. So I have a daughter named Rainbow, but I often think of terms of chakras and colors and 7. So I was thinking like red would correspond to what can we do to be safer? Maybe, you know, how many of us know about first aid, or do we have a first aid kit, or do we have the necessary things in our house that we could treat someone? You know, maybe this is even things like having a security system and, you know, is our home protected? And then orange would be about community. And I'd have to say that in the past few weeks, I've met more of my neighbors and exchanged names and phone numbers with them than in all the years I've lived here. And then yellow would be about you know, like putting our home in order and also making a commitment to healthy eating all the time. Like I see a lot of people, my grandkids are learning how to prepare food. They're learning how to cook. They're planting seeds in the garden. So yellow is about our hara, our digestive system. And then green would be about more bartering and volunteerism. We're seeing a lot of people offering, you know, classes online and willing to do trade, realizing that everybody's, you know, short on money. Blue would be about using our voice, whether it be, you know, sharing truth information or communicating with others. I'm, you know, very grateful. I know we can't believe everything on Facebook, but there are some things that are really important to share with others that you're not seeing on CNN or the New York Times. So using our voice for truth and expression. And then indigo would be about how are we enhancing our intelligence for, you know, global communication, to be able to communicate with others, but also, again, where are we putting our mind? Are we using this time to watch Tiger King, which thank you for mentioning that, Marco. No, I'm not, but, you know, are we doing this so that we're going to, instead of being warriors, we're going to be more competent to be warriors of peace. And then violet would be our connection to the divine. So whether that's more prayer or more meditation or really contemplating, you know, our end of lifetime. So again, we want all our chakras to be in working order. So that's just a little way of thinking of it. And you could put different ideas for each one of those, but the idea of doing things in 7 levels seems to resonate for me. Thank you.
You know what comes up for me is I have no fucking clue what's going to happen next. And I think anyone who tells you otherwise is probably grandstanding or posturing a little bit. And I think the best thing that I can do is just be honest with, I don't fucking know. And if I go, you know, from I don't know to take out the I with my sitting practice and drop into the sort of vast spacious field that's at the heart of all of us, at the heart of all of our practices, we get into not knowing. And that not knowing is spacious and creative. And from that spacious and creative place, we can be spacious and creative in responding to the changes that we see. And we're seeing these changes on every block, in every home, in every neighborhood. And maybe it's, you know, the Mexican lady who lives next door who, you know, I know cleans houses for a living, who's suddenly out of work. Maybe it's bringing her a casserole over and, you know, I don't normally need a house cleaner, but say, hey, I'm going to pay for a couple months of cleaning just ahead of time. So once you get off your, you know, once this thing blows over, come clean my house. Or maybe you've seen an acupuncturist or a massage therapist, you know, and they've been like a big cornerstone of your healthcare. They're probably not doing great right now, having a hard time paying their rent, hard time paying their bills. Say, hey, if I got money in my pocket right now, I'm going to buy a couple sessions ahead of you ahead of time. And if maybe you're in the other boat, maybe you're in that place of like finances are really tight and horrible for you because you lost your job at the university, or you had your, campus job got taken away, or you were a waitress and your waitress job got taken away. What could you suddenly do with your time now? How could you add value to your community? How could you bring the resources and the knowledge and the capacity to the world that in a way that the world values it and needs it? And I sense that each of you have that. You know, it's a little weird looking at all these just sort of black boxes with your names in it. You know, if you have a chance, I'd love to just see you personally, as long as you're wearing pants, you know, as long as you're dressed. I saw a couple funny videos making fun of Zoom and Skype, you know. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity for you all here and for myself. And I hope I can be a resource for you in some way. That's what I got. I got one video out of it too. As you know, you look very comfortable there. You know, that's actually probably an underlying thing is we've been all pushing ourselves in this world for a long time, especially if you're a college student. You've been pushing yourself through school for, you know, probably well over 2 decades at this point. Maybe you all just deserve a rest, you know? I'm okay. I'm a believer in rest.
Yes, I think our whole society and civilization has needed a rest for a long time. And I think some really deep, profound healing is going to come out of this on a personal level for many of us, but also on a social, collective level. As we recalibrate after the pandemic, I think a lot of us are going to have a deeper sense of who we are and how we belong in community and how interconnected we all truly are. And so one way that a lot of us are showing our interconnectedness and expressing our voice in these times is by howling at 8 p.m. And here in the Mountain Time Zone, we are 1 minute away from 8. So I'm going to unmute everybody and we can give a collective howl together. And then if you want to, maybe you can go outside and howl to your neighbors too. I'm going to do that for sure. So you're all unmuted. Thank you so much to our panelists. This video is available on Facebook if you want to watch it again and take notes on all those great ideas and share it with your friends. And hopefully I'll do another one next week. Next week is Earth Day and Earth Week. At Naropa, we have a virtual Justice Week, lots of activities. And thank you all so much for participating. And I'm going to end it now and go outside and howl.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. See
Thank
y'all.
you.
Be well.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay well.